You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. The first article I want to take a look at is on Reuters. The title is "Trump Slams Protests and Defends Pandemic Response as Tulsa Crowd Underwhelms." So this is about the Trump rally. If you were unaware of what's going on right now, or if you're from the future, if you took a time machine back to 2020 and you're sitting here wondering what's happening at this point in history, let me just give you a little primer on it. Basically, we're dealing with the pandemic. The U.S. went into lockdown mid-March, it was mid-March when we went into lockdown. So that's April, May, June, 3 months into the lockdown, and Trump is ready to basically release the lockdown now. He's ready for everyone to go back to work. And the real reason that he's interested in that is because he doesn't want the economy to crash even harder than it is before his election. It seems to me that's the message I'm getting from this whole situation. So what he's doing is he's completely pretending that, the pandemic is over. He's even asked people, or he even told his administration to stop testing, slow down on the tests, because that means fewer cases. No, that's not what that means, actually. It doesn't mean fewer cases. It means fewer known cases. So that's where we sit as of this moment. Now let's give this article a read and see what it says. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Reuters. President Donald Trump, addressing a less than full arena for his first political rally in months, blasted anti-racism protests and defended his handling of the coronavirus on Saturday in a bid to reinvigorate his re-election campaign. The president, who revels in large crowds and had predicted that his first rally in months would be epic, blamed the media for discouraging attendees and cited bad behavior by demonstrators outside, but did not specifically acknowledge that many seats in the 19,000-seat BOK Center arena were empty. Yeah, we got an update to this. I think the fire marshal said there were 6,200 people there, which is hilarious because he was actually expecting, I think his campaign said he was expecting like a million people reserved a seat or whatever. They didn't actually pay, but they put in for the reservation. They said they were coming. But interestingly enough, the city itself of Tulsa, Oklahoma only has like 300,000 people in it or something like that. So there's absolutely no way. That would have been completely absurd if like millions of people showed up. But Trump was so confident that this is going to be a huge event that he even set up like an overflow area so that he could go out there after the rally and talk to another crowd afterward. His campaign's not doing very well at this immediate moment. It really needed like a shot in the arm, basically, to help it, and a giant rally would have been the perfect thing, but yeah, he failed miserably. So the question is, where did all of those fake registrations come from? Apparently, there were some TikTok videos that were really, really highly viewed, like lots and lots of views on them, basically having TikTokers go and reserve seats. Like all of the fans were reserving seats and never planned to show up. So people were actually camping outside for only 6,000 people. And they packed them all in this little tiny area. Like they could have socially distanced. They could have done social distancing and been safe about the rally since there are only 6,000. And it holds 19,000 people. But nope, didn't want to do that. Wanted to pack them all in as tight as he could. Take a whole bunch of good pictures of people packed in super tight. It's absurd. It's really absurd. Anyway, let's continue reading. Trump sought to use the event to bring momentum back to his campaign after coming under fire for his response to the coronavirus and to the death of George Floyd, a black man who died in custody of Minneapolis police. The smaller-than-expected crowd robbed him, at least for now, of the ability to highlight enthusiasm for his candidacy as an advantage over his expected Democratic challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden, who has eschewed large campaign events. Trump has brushed aside criticism for his decision to hold his first rally since March 2nd in Tulsa, the site of the country's bloodiest outbreaks of racist violence against black Americans some 100 years ago. Yeah, that's another thing. Trump decided to hold his rally in a city that was just the ugliest things happened there to the black community. Segregation was in full effect at this point in history, right? Like 100 years ago. Segregation was going on back then. I think it was in like the 20s. So this little section of Tulsa, Oklahoma was completely black. It was segregated and black only, basically. And this was like their financial district. This was their banks and their things like that. They called it Black Wall Street because that's where all the money stuff was being exchanged, basically, for the black community in Tulsa. And people actually took like private planes and dropped bombs on it. It was like a massive massacre. It was a horrific situation that unfolded there 100 years ago. Absolutely horrific. And Trump decided to hold his rally there in Tulsa on the anniversary of the abolishment of slavery. Seems like a dog whistle to me. I don't know. I mean, Trump even admitted that he knew about the connection, and he decided to change it because there was too much pushback. Those were basically Trump's words. So he changed it to the 20th instead of the 19th, which is the holiday when slavery was abolished. So let's continue reading this. The president, who has encouraged a militaristic response to the nationwide demonstrations while being accused of showing a lack of empathy for the plight of black Americans, used his speech to take aim at some of the protesters. Of course he did. Big surprise. The unhinged left-wing mob is trying to vandalize our history, desecrate our monuments, our beautiful monuments, tear down our statues, and punish, cancel, and persecute anyone who does not conform to their demands for absolute and total control. We're not conforming, Trump told cheering supporters. Ahead of the November 3rd election, the Republican president is trailing in opinion polls to Biden, who has hammered Trump for his response to the protests and the pandemic. What doesn't make sense to me about this situation is the fact that what happened to George Floyd was not directly connected to Trump. Like, in the minds of the protesters, Trump was not the cop. He wasn't the one who did it. Now, you can talk about policies that Trump pushed through or that Trump erased from the Obama era that led to this situation unfolding the way it did, but Trump was not the direct enemy of this situation. The protesters were not mad at Trump at first. There are so many things that Trump could have done to get the protesters on his side and boost his numbers. There's so much he could have done to get them to like him more. I don't remember who I heard this from. I think I may have heard it from... I have no idea who I heard it from. I'm not going to do a call out anyways. But somebody, this is not my original thought, somebody suggested, what if Trump, like immediately after this stuff happened, like immediately after the Floyd situation unfolded and these riots were playing out, what if Trump had come out to the Rose Garden and just knelt on the ground for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in solidarity and then went right back inside? He may not have had to do anything other than that to just make his poll numbers soar. Ultimately, his response to the protests and everything that happened made people hate him worse. Why did he make himself the enemy of the protesters? He didn't have to do that. He was not the target of the protests at first. I don't understand. Why did he make that stupid decision to make himself the target? It was 100% him. Let's continue reading here. Trump defended his response to COVID-19, saying more testing had led to identifying more cases, seemingly to his chagrin. When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more cases, he said. So I said to my people, slow down the testing, please. A White House official said he was obviously kidding with that remark. Hours before the rally, Trump's campaign announced 6 members of its advance team had tested positive for COVID-19. Only a handful of attendees wore masks inside the arena. Yeah, I wonder how many actually did wear masks. I would love to count the people, because Trump actually said he felt like people were wearing masks out of revenge or to make him look bad, I guess. I can't imagine walking into this den with a mask on and sitting there listening to Trump. There's absolutely no way I would have the balls to do that. I don't even care. Like, yeah, if I was a journalist, I might, but I would be afraid that somebody would actually use violence against me at this place. I mean, Trump has explicitly endorsed violence, so it really would not surprise me at all. Let's continue reading here. Mostly a hoax. Oklahoma has reported a surge in new coronavirus cases in recent days, and the state's Department of Health warned that attendees face an increased risk of catching the virus. I'm not concerned about it. I think it's mostly a hoax, attendee Will Williams, 46, said of the coronavirus, questioning why Democrats were not more concerned about people who die from drug overdoses. Williams did not wear a mask. I think that people are a little bit more concerned about this rather than people who die from drug overdoses, which, people are concerned about that too. But I think this is a little bit more pressing because it's contagious, extremely contagious, and drug addiction isn't contagious in the same way. I mean, I'm speaking as a former addict, so this is just insane. This whole thing is insane. Something else I want to make note of, you may have noticed I said former addict rather than recovering addict. That's because I've been clean for years now, and saying that you are a recovering addict forever, perpetually, in perpetuity, that is an AA thing. Secular therapy says nothing about you constantly being in recovery for the rest of your life. Alcoholics Anonymous makes you put this in the back of your mind until the day you die. And I just don't buy it. I'm not a recovering addict. I am a recovered addict. I am no longer addicted to drugs, like mentally addicted to drugs. I mean, there are medications that that I have a dependency on, like Suboxone. I have a physical dependency, but addiction and dependency are not the same thing. I'm not an addict. I have a physical dependence on some medications. On one medication. I only take Suboxone. Anyway. Sorry for derailing there. Let's continue reading. The president unusually suggested that his own speech to the partially empty arena was not his best. So far tonight, I'm average, Trump said. While Trump campaign officials said prior to the event that demand far outstripped the capacity of the venue, Trump and Vice President Mike Pence canceled speeches to an expected overflow crowd after a few dozen supporters showed up to a space prepared for thousands. Trump campaign spokesman Tim Murtaugh said protesters had interfered with supporters trying to enter the rally. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that 1 million people showed up and only 6,000 managed to, get through the protesters. That totally makes sense. That's actually a little more concerning for your sake, Donald, because if the protest is so big that it can prevent millions or at least 1 million people from getting through, there's a bigger issue with your campaign. Let's continue reading. There were some shouting matches and scuffles outside the event between around 30 Black Lives Matter demonstrators and some Trump supporters waiting to enter. A Reuters reporter saw no sign any Trump supporters were prevented from entering the arena or overflow area. Trump warned that unless he was reelected, all Americans would endure the chaos you're seeing in our Democratic-run cities. When you see those lunatics all over the streets, it's damn nice to have arms, he said, vowing to protect Americans' rights to bear arms. Our people are not nearly as violent, but if they ever were, it would be a terrible, terrible day for the other side. See, this is one of the biggest issues with Trump. This us versus them mentality, the other side. He doesn't want to unite Americans. He doesn't want us to feel like one country. He wants us to feel like insiders and outsiders. That's one of the hallmarks of a cult and a cult-like mindset, is making people feel like they're exalted, they're special, they're better than the others that they're fighting, they're better than their enemies, and you got to give them an enemy to fight. That's how a cult operates, just like that. And Trump's doing it. Tulsa police reported one arrest of a woman wearing a t-shirt reading "I can't breathe" after she refused to leave a private event area. Okay. If it's a private event area, then she has no right to be there if her invitation has been revoked. So I understand if she was moved to another area. That's okay with me. Overwhelmingly, these encounters have been peaceful, with everyone attempting to share their views, Tulsa police wrote on Twitter. A small group of armed civilian men were outside the arena during the rally. One of them told reporters they were there in case Antifa protesters turned violent. Wow, dude. That's disturbing. It's a show of force. That's really, really disturbing that they were even there like that. After intense criticism, Trump postponed the rally by a day so that it did not coincide with the anniversary of the June 19th commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to do. This country is a mess right now, and I have no idea how to go about fixing it. I don't know. The best thing that I can do is take it one step at a time, one day at a time. In my eyes, I hate Biden. I could not stand the dude. He's awful, and he's not going to do anything that I want him to do. But Trump released the military on civilians, U.S. citizens, and used tear gas on peaceful protesters. That is far past my line, and I'm ready to vote for pretty much anybody to get him out. Pretty much anybody at this point.